Do you ever make things more complicated than they need to be? For example, when I think about giving Christmas gifts to my family, I tend to focus on the details, the micro details, you might say. What hobbies, music, movies, fill in the blank are they into at this moment? What gift did we give last year, and how could we make this year's gift stand out? What could we give them to create the most meaning? Can anyone relate? All too often, what happens is the things that I think I'm doing to show my love end up being more complicated than they need to be. My attempts at being over-the-top thoughtful in my relationships sometimes turn into resentment for the whole process of gift giving. So there's something that I'm trying, that I'm wondering, that I invite you to think about too. Here it goes. What if predictability is what our relationships truly need? Sure, it's one thing to turn my ideas into simplified gift giving, but what would change if I focused on showing up predictably? Think with me for a minute about something predictable that you appreciate. Here's a simple example, something that's pretty ordinary for me. I appreciate the smell of brewed coffee in the morning. I'm one of those people who sets the timer on my coffee maker, and there is something about it, even before I take a sip, that after all of these years of starting my morning with just the smell of coffee actually helps me prepare for my day. It is simple, it is ordinary, it is predictable. Is there something predictable that you appreciate? Jump with me for a moment to the Bible, where there is actually a pretty profound place where Jesus reminds us that the ordinary and the predictable is good. In two of the Gospels, Luke chapter 11 and Matthew chapter 6, we read about Jesus teaching his followers how to pray. And he's intentional in pointing out that we don't need fancy words to pray. We don't need to be showy or loud. This is the place in the Bible where we learn probably the most predictable prayer of all time, what we refer to now as the Lord's Prayer. And if you take a minute to say this prayer slowly and really think about the words, I want you to look at this line in particular. Give us today our daily bread. Daily bread. I don't think it's an accident that Jesus says daily bread. It's simple, it's ordinary, it's predictable, and if we're honest, it's all that we really need. So, how do we translate this to the people in our lives? Where in our relationships do we make things more complicated than they need to be? Where could we show up for someone, not with the most perfect gift, but with our predictable presence? Like that smell of a cup of coffee, it might be ordinary, but it might be all that our loved one truly needs.